What's going on, guys? Ted from Immersion here, and I am back with some more Ghosts of Saltmarsh coverage. I wanted to get that done before I roll into the coverage of this guy. Sorry if my voice sounds a little froggy or strange. I've got some sort of throat thing going on, which is annoying. But anyway, this time we're going to be covering the new monsters found in the Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and if you would like to see more about that, then stay tuned. Alright, so let us jump right into it. So here we are in D&D Beyond, looking at the Appendix C, which is the monsters and NPCs. I did want to point you out, and it does actually say here, some of these creatures were also described in Tomb of Annihilation, Volo's Guide to Monsters, and Princes of the Apocalypse. For clarification, I am only going to cover the monsters here that are new to this book, and there's one way we can determine how that is, and a couple other things I wanted to show you. So I know, for instance, that this first creature is Ghosts of Saltmarsh specific, but if you click on it, you'll see right down here in the bottom, it actually says right here that this creature is from the Hidden Shrine of Timokon, or however you pronounce it, which is actually one contained, which they don't even list there, is one contained in Tales from the Yawning Portal. So this creature is actually not a brand new creature. But I also wanted to point out, if you're unaware, well, I thought they had it. Maybe not. I was going to say the pronunciation guide, which you're normally supposed to have, if you click on it, there's supposed to be like a little symbol right here that lets you hear someone speak the name so you know how to pronounce it. But apparently that's not the case because it's not listed there. But yeah, that's interesting that you click on the first monster and it shows you that it's from this book, which again is one of the adventures contained in Tales from the Yawning Portal. So Assassin Vines, Tomb of Annihilation, Bard is Volo's Guide. I believe Bodak is Volos. But see, here's what I was talking about, right? So if I play this, I mean, we know how to pronounce it, but that was Matt Mercer actually pronouncing that one. But let's go to find our first specific to this book, which I believe is going to be our Bullywug Croaker. Yes. So we have basic bullywugs contained in the monster manual, which are a frog-like, I don't know why I'm looking over there, a frog-like race, and they are, they can be just a low-level combatant, kind of something different than lizard folk or kobolds or goblins, something like that. But they added some cool, interesting factions or ranks in the Bullywug community here, if you will. So first up is the Bullywug Croaker. Nothing too crazy stat-wise. We're only talking a CR2. Has the ability to breathe air and water, speak with frogs and toads, and standing leap. And I think swamp camouflage. All four of those traits are all pursuant to all bullywugs, so we're not going to really cover those because that's a thing they all have. Spear and bite are pretty basic, but these right here are what make them unique. The Glar Pat and the Roo Glog, which are your different like throat noises that you would make. So the Glar Pat is 3 times a day, sings a song of marshy doom. Each chosen creature within 30 feet must make a DC 12 Wisdom save or take 2d8 psychic damage. A creature that fails a saving throw has disadvantage on con saves until the end of its next turn. And the Roo Glog is each bullywug within 30 feet of the Croaker gains 10 temporary hit points. So this is ones that can weave magic into their bullywug songs. I believe the Royal as well is unique. Yep. So now we're up to a CR3. Slightly stronger, definitely beefier here. Has proficiency in some saving throws and some skills. Does have the Brute ability, which I think is most commonly used in the Bugbear, where they add an extra damage die to whatever weapon they're using. They have advantage on melee attacks when they're riding on a frog. Royal Spear, so you can see here it's 2d6 or 2d8, because it has the Brute feature. But if the creature is medium or smaller, it must succeed on a DC 13 strength save or get knocked prone. And Croaked Decree, each bullywug within 60 feet of the royal that can hear this pronouncement, which is once a day, has advantage on its next attack roll. The largest and most intelligent bullywug end up being the leader, and that's what these guys are. A little bummed there's no art, though. Deep Scion is in Volos. Drowned Ascetic is Ghosts of Saltmarsh. Okay, there's this whole drowned sub-race, or sub-monster type. You'll see Drowned Assassin, Drowned Ascetic, Drowned Blade. So your Drowned Ascetic is your monk variant here. So we've got CR3 here, pretty beefy with some hit points, resistance or immunity to poison, the poison condition. The Drowned Ascetic cannot swim and it sinks to the bottom of any body of water, takes no penalties to movement or attacks underwater. It is immune to the effects of being at a depth at greater than 100 feet. It shares a mind with every other drowned one within a mile. So this is very much a zombie mentality here, which is kind of what they are. And it has the undead fortitude feature of a zombie, where if it goes to 0 hit points, it can get back up. Makes 3 unarmed strikes, which do a d8 plus 3 bludgeoning damage, and you need to make a DC 12 con save or contract blue rot. Now, blue rot is a disease. Afflicts humanoids. A victim grows grotesque blue boils on their face and back. The disease is carried by undead. The disease boils manifest in 1d4 hours, causing the victim's con and charisma to decrease by a d4 each to a minimum of 3. This is quickly followed by a fever and tingling in the extremities. An infected creature is vulnerable to radiant damage and gains the ability to breathe underwater. So, a little bit of negative and positive. At the end of each long rest, they must make another DC 12 con save. On a success, they regain 1 hit point, or 1 charisma, and 1 constitution point. If they regain all points lost to the disease, it's cured. Other effects that raise victims' ability scores do not cure the disease. On a fail, they take 48 necrotic damage, and the boils burst and spread. Creature reduced to 0 hit points by this damage cannot regain hit points until the disease is cured, though it can be stabilized as normal. And they do have a reaction. So, Dexterous Target. The Drowned Ascetic adds 3 to its AC against 1 ranged attack that would hit it. This is sort of like a deflect missile, almost. Again, being the monkish type. So we have our Drowned Assassin here, which is going to be our rogue. Again, blue rot prevalent here. Dex and con saves. CR4, still got the poison immunities. We get our bottom treader, our bound together, and undead fortitude again across all 3. Can make 2 crossbow attacks, 2 dagger attacks. It can then take the dash, disengage, or hide action, which this reminds me when I heard Mike Merles had said something a while back about how he wishes bonus actions didn't exist in 5th edition, and this is sort of, I guess, how they would handle not having bonus actions in 5th edition. You can do these things, and then you can also do this, because as you can see, it doesn't state that it has any bonus actions, but it says that it can, being a roguish type, can make 2 attacks, and then also dash, disengage, or hide, which would normally be a rogue's cunning action feature. It's just a bonus action. Hand crossbow. Sorry, guys. D6. Oh, sorry. D6 piercing, D6 poison, con save, or blue rot. Dagger is a D4 plus 2d8 poison, DC 12 or blue rot, and then reveal. It removes its mask, revealing its rotting face. Each creature of its choice within 30 feet must make a DC 13 wisdom save or be frightened. And I believe they'll... Oh, no, 2 more. Drowned Blade here. CR2, got all of our abilities here. Nothing crazy. This is just like your regular, almost like your fighter type. 2 attacks, D8, and then DC 12 con save or blue rot. And I believe the Drowned Master is our final one here. Con and Wisdom save, or a CR9, so this is like the leader here. Bound together, undead fortitude. A cold aura at the start of each of its turns. Each creature within 5 feet of it must make a... I'm sorry, it just takes a d10 cold damage. A creature that touches it or hits it with a melee attack within 5 feet also takes a d10 cold damage. Also, really good perception, plus 10 and a passive perception of 20, so pretty hard to sneak up on these guys. And they're pretty hardy, too. 157 hit points. Makes 2 attacks, one with its greatsword and one with its life-draining tentacle. Greatsword does 2d6 plus 3. plus 46 cold damage, and a DC 12 or contract blue rot. The life-draining tentacle, 2d6 plus 3 necrotic, DC 15 con save, where its hit point maximum is reduced by the amount of damage taken. That's rough. 2d6 plus 3. Target dies. If its hit point maximum is reduced to 0, if the last reduction until the target finishes a long rest. On a failed save, the target also contracts blue rot, and then necrotic ink discharges ink in a cone of 30 feet. Each creature caught in the ink must make a DC 15 con save or take 68 necrotic damage or half on a success. And a creature that fails a saving throw is blinded until the end of its next turn, and they also contract blue rot. So this is sort of your leader of your drowned forces here. I believe Fathomer also new? No. Fathomer. Oh, that's these guys. Princes of the Apocalypse are a water cultist. Giant Coral Snake is new, or is that also? Yeah, that's new. So this isn't always nice to have extra beasts added to the game for the people who summon animals with, conjure woodland creatures, or for druids as well. So a CR4 Giant Coral Snake. It does have a swim speed. Not horrible AC. It's 13 for an animal, 90 hit points. Blind sight, as it is a snake, but what's really the big thing is the bite attack. Plus 5 to hit, 2d4 plus 3 piercing damage, and then a DC 12 con save, or be stunned until its next turn. On a failed save, the target begins to hallucinate as an afflicted by short-term madness that lasts 10 minutes, which is pretty cool. I like that a lot. It can be fun to use giant coral snakes, even as enemies. Giant sea eels, CR half, 14 AC, 19 HP, breathe only in water, and does 2d10 plus 2 piercing damage. That's a pretty solid hit for a CR 1/2 creature. Alright, next up is the Harpy Matriarch. Alright, so this is unique to this. So I like this. I like seeing advancements and additions to existing creatures. Again, we saw the Bullywug advancements. I think we're going to see some more. It's either Sahuagin, I don't know how you technically pronounce it. We'll find out. But here we have a Harpy Matriarch, so we're going up to a CR5 here. Which she overwatches a flock of harpies, which makes sense. Pretty beefy on the hit point side. While within 60 feet of the Matriarch, creatures have disadvantage on saving throws against her luring song, which we'll get to that. And she has advantage on saving throws against spells and magical effects. 2 claw attacks. 3d6 plus 3 is a pretty sizable claw attack. Fleeting form here. She can magically disguise herself to resemble a humanoid of roughly similar size and shape for up to an hour. And can revert as a bonus action. It does not hold up to close scrutiny, though. Luring Song. Every humanoid and giant within 300 feet of the Matriarch must make a DC 14 Wisdom save or be charmed. The Matriarch must take a bonus action on its subsequent turns to continue singing. It can stop singing at any time. While charmed, a target is incapacitated and ignores the songs of other harpies. If the charmed target is more than 5 feet away from the Matriarch, the target must move on its turn towards the Matriarch by direct route, trying to get within 5 feet. It doesn't avoid opportunity attacks, but before moving into damaging terrain such as lava or a pit, whenever it takes damage from another source other than the Matriarch, the target can repeat the saving throw. Okay, got it. Charmed target can also repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns. If you succeed, you're immune for 24 hours. Visage of Desire, once per day. Projects a vision into the minds of all creatures within 30 feet. And aren't constructs or undead, showing them achieving whatever their desire is. DC 14 Wisdom save, or be paralyzed until the end of their next turn. Alright, Juvenile Crackin. It looks super adorable. Can we talk about that compared to like the real Kraken, which is huge and shelled and monstrous? Like hard shelled. So this guy is basically what he says he is. He's a juvenile Kraken. So if you're familiar with the Kraken from the Monster Manual, this is a significantly less powerful version. Only a CR 14, but comes with most of the things that the Kraken has, right? pretty high AC, high hit points. Still has the ability to move at a decent speed on land and faster in water. Proficiency in all but charisma saving throws. Resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing from non-magic. Immune to lightning, frightening, and paralysis. True sight out to 120 feet, so don't think you're going to be hiding from it. Telepathy out to 60 feet, can breathe on land and water. Ignores difficult terrain, it reduces its speed and can cause it to be restrained. And it can spend just 5 feet of movement to escape from any non-magical restraints or a grapple. 2 tentacle attacks, and you can replace one with a fling. Its bite attack, I mean, we're looking at plus 12 to hit here, right? 3d8 plus 7 piercing. If the target is medium or smaller, they're grappled. Well, swallowed, and then it has, swallow features, blinded, restrained, and take the acid damage. If it does enough damage, it spits it up. Tentacle attacks have a 20-foot reach, 3d6 plus 7 bludgeoning damage. The target is grappled, DC 20 to escape. If they're grappled, they are restrained. If you do the fling attack when you've got someone grappled, you throw them 40 feet in a random direction, knock them prone. If they strike a solid surface, they take a d6 damage for every 10 feet they were thrown. If it's thrown at another creature, that creature must make a DC 13 dex save or take the same damage and be knocked prone. Has its lightning strike ability. It can strike a target within 90 feet of it, must make a DC 18 dex save, taking 40-10 lightning damage. And it has a few legendary actions here, 3 total. 2 to use a tentacle attack, 1 to use fling, and 3 to make an ink cloud in a 40-foot radius. Spreads around quarters, only works while underwater. Each creature other than the Kraken must make a DC 18 con save or take 2d10 poison damage or half on a success. Coalinth, this is a new one here. Well, let's just confirm it. Yep. So these are basically aquatic hobgoblins, long story short here. So nothing crazy, but an interesting way to add something like a hobgoblin to your aquatic or nautical themed campaign. We've got, basic stats. We do have dex saving throw proficiency, which is something. Breathe and land in water. They do have martial advantage, which I think hobgoblins have. Once per turn, they can deal an extra 2d6 damage to a creature if it hits with an attack. The creature is within 5 feet of the ally. Right? So basically, instead of something like pack tactics, when an ally is within 5 feet, they can do an extra 2d6 damage. They just have a Triton, right? 20, 60, d6 or d8. Nothing crazy. We have a Coalinth Sergeant, which is a slightly beefier version. Has Dex and Wisdom, has a couple skill proficiencies. They do both have Dark Vision. Same has Martial Advantage. This one can make 2 attacks. Trident does a little bit more damage. It also has a Hooked Net, which has a range of 10, 30. If they hit someone, it does d4 plus 2 piercing damage. They are restrained. They can use their action to make a DC 12 strength check to free themselves or another creature in a hooked net, dealing 5 damage to it. Also destroys it, and they can spear the helpless. Whenever a creature within the 30 feet of the sergeant becomes restrained, the sergeant can move its speed towards the restrained creature. If the sergeant ends within reach of the restrained creature, it can then make a melee attack. I really like that a lot. So as you get somebody restrained, you hook them with a net, it can then move and attack them. I think Kraken Priests existed already in Volo's Guide. Okay. Kish. These look like just quippers, essentially, but they're challenge rating 1. Kish is a defender of deep sea realms who is ready to join the party in their struggle. Tritons are folk of the elemental plane of water who journey to the material plane to watch over the dark places of the ocean. Is Kish just a person? Oh, Kish. Oh, okay. My bad. Kish is just an NPC. So he's a Triton NPC. So there's nothing too crazy to talk about here. Has the abilities of a Triton, basically. A low-level Triton. Speak to amphibious and water-breathing creatures, can cast Fog Cloud, and has a spear. Kish. See, I saw this, and I thought quippers, but that was wrong. That's I would not place them there. That doesn't really correlate too well in my mind. So living iron statues are new to this. So this is another construct creature. Let's see. Vulnerability to acid, right? That's interesting. Immune to lightning and poison, and then many conditions as constructs typically are: charmed, exhausted, frightened, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned. Challenge rating 5. 16 AC, so not too high, and 102 hit points. As all constructs are immune to any spell that would alter its form. 2 attacks, one with its blade, one with its hammer. Blade does 2d6 plus 3, hammer does 2d6 plus 3, and they're knocked prone. No save, just knocked prone. And it can whirl, which it gets back on a 5/6, where it spins each target of its choice within 10 feet. They must make a DC 13 dexterity saving throw. Take 3d10 plus 3 bludgeoning damage. Squat, solid, iron-looking statue guards an evil cultist treasure. All right, oops. Let us keep going. Lizard Folk Commoner, is this a new one? All right, so we have similar. I was talking about the expansion of the Bullywugs, and this Zahugin. This is an expansion of the Lizard Folk. This is just like a lesser Lizard Folk than the base level Lizard Folk in the monster manuals. This is literally a commoner, right? Nothing crazy here. A little stronger than a human commoner or a commoner NPC. Get a little bump and a couple stats here. Nothing really to talk about. It's got a bite attack. Lizard Folk Render uses the primal magic of Simonia. Undergoes terrifying changes during a days-long ritual. Their claws go hard as steel. Its frame enlarges. Its large size becomes even more ferocious. All right, CR3, Athletics, Perception, Survival, Proficiency, Blood Frenzy, has advantage on melee attack rolls against a creature that doesn't have all of its hit points, similar to a shark. Hold breath for 15 minutes. 1 claw, 1 bite. 2d8 plus 3, the claws have a 10-foot reach. Bite is 1d10 plus 3, and rend the field. Makes a claw attack against each creature of its choice within 10 feet. And when they're hit with it, they need to make a DC 13 strength save or be knocked prone. Alright, Lizard Folks Scale Shield. These are elite shield warriors here. Shield, Scale Mail, and Shield. Same proficiencies as the one above. 2 weapon attacks, each with a different weapon. We have a Morning Star, D8 plus 2, Bite, Spike Shield. And if an ally within 5 feet of the Scale Shield is hit by an attack, it can reduce the damage by half. That's cool. That's a new kind of feature. This reduce things by half rather than take the damage themselves or something like that. Lizard Folk Subchief, which we have, I think, Chief in the Monster Manual. So I guess this is a Subchief is a priest here, similar to a cleric, right? So Wisdom, saving throw, proficiency. Some spell casting. We have Light, Sacred Flame, Spare the Dying, Thaumaturgy. Command, Guiding Bolt, Purify Food and Drink. Old Person, Lesser Restoration and Silence. Bestow Curse and Dispel Magic. A basic Dagger, and then the Jaws of Simonia. The Lizard Folk invokes the primal magic. I'm sorry, my voice is getting worse. Spectral Maw on a creature within 60 feet. DC 13 Dex save, taking 5d8 piercing damage on a fail, half on a success. A creature that fails is also frightened until the end of its next turn.
Alright, so next up here is the Licata, which I really like these creatures. So we have lizard folk in D&D, and we have bullywugs that are frog people, or frog folk. So Licata are fish folk. Nothing crazy, right? Stat-wise or, crazy mechanically. But they just look cool. Look at this guy. One thing that I have a hard time conceptualizing is that this is actually a medium creature. Because I think this is supposed to be a sea lion, but I keep wanting to think that that's an otter. So I want to make these guys small size, but they're actually medium-sized creatures. So, that could potentially be terrifying, because that could mean they're as big as, a human. Or even taller. And I feel like that you lose some of the cuteness if they're that big. So these are just, generic, an additional race, you could add in to supplement your kobolds or your lizard folks or your goblins as need be. tribal submersible tribe. Let's see, they dwell in submerged tribal communities along sea coasts. They don't really have anything crazy. They do have this Leviathan will, so advantage on charmed, frightened, paralyzed, poisoned, stunned, or put to sleep is a weird one. I guess that technically is how you would say it. And then they do have limited amphibiousness, so they can come above the water, but they need to be submerged at least once every 4 hours to avoid suffocating. So that's the Licata. And then we have a different version here, the Licata Hunter, which is a little more beefy. Here has an envenomed crossbow as opposed to a spear here. So 2d8 plus 2 on the crossbow and a DC 12 con save or be poisoned. Alright, then we've got the Maude Demon, which I believe was a Mordenkainen's or Volo's. That's this little guy, so he's not new. But the Maw of Sekolah is. So, an avatar of the hungry Sahuagin god. Two-headed shark is fed a steady diet of sentient creatures captured by them. And the priestesses adorn the fins of the maw with gemmed bands and polished skulls. So I don't think there is an actual picture of this, which is a travesty, because this would be really cool to see a picture of. The huge monstrosity, challenge rating 7. It does actually have telepathy, which is kind of crazy to think about a two-headed shark with telepathy. Can only breathe underwater. It's got 2 legendary resistances, multi-attack, 1 bite, 1 tail. The bite is 2d10 plus 5. The tail is d8 plus 5. And it has 3 legendary actions. Make a perception check. Move up to its speed, which is a swim speed of 50. And feed. The ferocious spirits of Sekolah flash through the water, tearing through the foes of the maw. Each creature of its choosing within 60 feet must make a dex save or take 2d6 slashing damage. It's not too intelligent. It is pretty strong. It has dark vision. But it's interesting that if it is a two-headed shark, that it doesn't have that shark feature where they get advantage on people when they have not full hit points. You think you would have given it that. So now these ones are all going to be new, I believe. So we had Merfolk and Marrow in the monster manual. So now we have a Merfolk Savage Er, which is which is just another type of merfolk. You'll see that too. We have a lot of additional types of base creatures here. So this one's nothing crazy. I also wonder if this is like a very sly allusion to like Ariel from The Little Mermaid, right? A salvaging merfolk who gathers things. Veterans of scouring wrecks and ruins in the deep waters. They help defend their kin with rapier-like weapons made of living coral, which is a pretty badass thing here. So you see the coral rapier just functions like a regular rapier. However, inject toxin twice per day. Melee hit 1d8 plus 2 piercing damage, and a creature must succeed on a DC 12 con save or be paralyzed until the end of its next turn. So nothing too crazy. We have a Minotaur living crystal statue, which is new to this. So this is just a construct and a guard for the tunnels in the Isles of the Abbey. So as a construct, it's going to have a lot of similar things that you're going to see to golems in the monster manual here, right? Vulnerability to force damage. Actually, this is more like a Helmed Horror or something like that. Immunity to lightning and poison, and then most conditions, charmed, exhaustion, frightened, paralyzed, petrified, poison. Has dark vision, can't immune to any effect that would change its form. 1 Great Axe attack and 1 Gore attack. The Great Axe is 2d12 plus 4. The Gore is a d8 plus 4. And as a reaction, it can do flying shards. In response to a creature hitting the statue with a melee weapon, it deals 2d10 piercing damage to the attacker. So not all the time, but as a reaction, it can just do retributive damage, which is nice. Not too crazy on the AC, decent HP, and still has a decent movement speed. So a couple of these, if they are guarding tunnels, right, a couple of these coming at you could potentially pose a pretty big problem just due to the numbers game. Now this I really like. So I'm a huge fan, and I've stated it before on many occasions that I am a big fan of 3.5, and I liked that. One of the things I really liked was the variability in similar creatures. And what I mean by that is like you could have a bear, right? And then you could have a dire bear. And then in later books, you'd have things like a monstrous bear or a fiendish bear or a celestial bear. And you'd have, like, you could have one singular animal or one singular creature, but there were like 6 or 7 different templates of that creature that would allow it to do a whole bunch of different things. And like, I feel like Game of Thrones normalized the dire wolf concept, right? This big wolf. But in older editions of Dungeons and Dragons, dire creatures weren't just like there's a wolf and a dire wolf. Like there were like a dire bear was terrifying, right? And bony protrusions, this thing was massive. All these dire creatures, really dangerous. So this is really cool to see this, which is a monstrous Parrotin, which if you've seen the Parrotin in the monster manual, they're cool and they have a lot of cool concepts, but they're nothing crazy. You're not gonna terrify a high level party with them. But this here is a monstrous version, which was I was hoping. This is a thing I've always kind of been hoping for 5th edition is things that they used to call templates back in the day. So you'd have like a monstrous template that you could take to any existing creature. So you'd say any monster or any monstrosity or beast or whatever it is, and you apply the monstrous template, which would have a standard set of things, right? It's going to add this many hit dice. It's going to add this many stats to it. It's going to give it this feature. And then that gives you the variability to expand things in your game. But that's not the case, but this is still pretty badass. This large Parrotin preys on ships and coastal communities alike. It has built numerous nests to mark its territory. So this is a challenge rating 11 creature. 60-foot fly speed. It has flyby, which is terrifying for a giant, stag-headed bird that wants to rip your heart out. It can fly in, attack you, and fly out without provoking attacks of opportunity. Advantage on perception checks that rely on sight or smell. 3 legendary resistances, and it can make 2 attacks with multi-attack, 1 gore and 1 talon. The gore is 2d6 plus 5. The talon is 2d10 plus 5. And it has Warp Shadow. It chooses up to 3 creatures within 60 feet of it that it can see. Each creature must make a DC 14 Wisdom save or become cursed. While cursed, whenever the creature makes an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, it must roll a d4 and subtract that number from the roll. Cursed creature can repeat this saving throw at the end of each of its turns. So it's sort of almost like a slightly better Bane. It's a Wisdom save, not Charisma. And then legendary actions, perception check, a talent attack, or a dive attack. It moves up to its speed towards one target of its choosing. If it makes a gore attack, that attack deals an extra 2d8 damage on hit. Alright, so Mr. Dory here, one of the 4 counselors who rules the styes. Mr. Dory hides his cursed nature in plain sight. His rare liquid-sensitive skin condition is actually a form of the same aboleth affliction that creates Scum, which we'll talk about in a little while here. Though Dory's condition is not as severe, he has managed to maintain his free will. So he is a challenge rating 10 aberration, using leather armor and a shield. We're immune to necrotic damage. He's got some innate spellcasting here. We can see detect magic, detect thoughts, and invisibility on himself at will. Fear, fireball, and fly twice a day. Cloud kill and etherealness once per day. Advantage on saving throws versus magic. He takes a d12 damage at the end of every hour he goes without exposure to water. And he can make 3 attacks with his rapier, which do a d8 plus 5 plus 2d6 necrotic. And the Eye of Corruption, which recharges on a 5 or 6. He glares at a creature within 30 feet and needs to make a con save. If it fails, it takes 27 necrotic damage and 27 poison damage, and then gains vulnerability to both necrotic and poison damage for a minute. That is brutal. Especially because his rapier does necrotic damage, and if you look at his spells with things like Cloud Kill, he doesn't have anything else like spell-wise that really mess you up, but even still, this recharges on a 5-6, so if he rolls it again, you'd be vulnerable to this again, and it doesn't say you can't be affected by it more than once. So if he hits you with this, you take the damage, and then you're vulnerable. And if he hits you with this again, this is going to jump up to 54 necrotic and 54 poison. All right, Oceanus is a sea elf here. Again, this is an NPC, nothing crazy. Can speak to anything with an innate swim speed and can breathe water and air, has a trident. Then we kind of get into this pirate concept. So now we have pirate NPCs. For either, this could obviously be for an enemy pirate crew your party encounters, or you could just use these as general kind of seafaring NPCs if your party's going to go on a ship themselves or something else like that. But we have the bosun here, which is kind of your charge of, or it says, or boat swain. Is tasked with organizing the cargo and crew on the ship. I don't really think I need to dive too heavily into what their abilities are. They all have sea legs, which is advantage on saving throws to resist being knocked prone. Cargo hauler is advantage on strength checks here for the bosun. And they have a light hammer and a hook. Then we have the captain, slightly more formidable, right? Has the flourish, adds charisma modifier to the damage roll for its longsword attacks. Has a hand crossbow and has a reactions. Shape up, ye dog, twice a day. Whenever a friendly creature within 30 feet that can hear it misses with an attack, the captain yells this perilous threat to allow the creature to reroll the attack roll. I really like this, the Deck Wizard. I'm a big fan of the Drizzt novels, and they did there's a whole kind of section, or a series of novels where they travel around on a boat, and they have a Deck Wizard, and I really, really like the concept of like the pirate wizard who's there to not only, expedite travel by things like the Gust of Wind spell or control water, but also there to just completely obliterate enemy ships. Like, even if they don't have cannons, you've got a wizard with fireball typically, so there's your cannon. This one's not as crazy though. This is only challenge rating 1, only has 2nd level spells. But Friends, Mage Hand, Prestidigitation, Ray of Frost, cantrips, Disguise Self, Fog Cloud, Mage Armor, Witch Bolt for 1st level spells, and then Gust of Wind, Melf's Acid Arrow, and Misty Step for 2nd level. The first mate, challenge rating 1, nothing crazy, but his long sword has a little bit extra. If the target is a creature, first mate can choose to deal no damage with the attack to disarm the creature. They must succeed on a DC 14 saving throw or drop the item they're holding. Is a Riptide Priest new? Okay, it is. So, priests of the Riptide cult gather in secret cabals to perform dark rituals to all Hydra, the elemental prince of evil water. Alright, challenge rating 2, humanoid here. Got some spell casting, Chill Touch, Mage Hand, Minor Illusion, Prestidigitation, Ray of Frost, Expeditious Retreat, Magic Missile, Shield, Blur, Hold Person, and Sleet Storm. Just an interesting water kind of themed spellcaster. Now we have our Zahugan, I don't know how you pronounce it. I could probably look, although I continue to say, like, my little pronunciation button is not here for Ghosts of Saltmarsh. So I don't know if they gave up on the pronunciation guide on D&D Beyond, or it just takes time, but it's not there. So there are some base of these creatures in the monster manual. We're going to get a big expansion of them because this is a water-themed campaign. They're even the front and center of the collector's edition cover. So the Blade Master has plate armor and shields made out of bones. That's what I was talking about with the shark here, Blood Frenzy. Advantage on melee attack rolls against creatures that don't have all their hit points. They can command any shark within 120 feet. They have the limited amphibiousness feature of need to be submerged at least once every 4 hours. Claws and bite are nothing crazy, but they have this wave cutter blade, which is 2d8 damage. They can make 3 attacks with it on a turn, so that could be pretty brutal. So Zahugan Champion, which is interesting that the Champion is less powerful than the Blade Master. In my mind, when I hear Champion, you would think that that's higher up, but still all the same kind of things. Blood Frenzy, limited amphibiousness, shark telepathy. This one has a spear instead, can make 3 attacks with the spear, and it looks to be more or less exactly the same, although no plate armor and less hit points. So a Coral Smasher is a frontline brute here, drawn from the ranks of the strongest Sahuagin warriors, although not nearly as strong or formidable. Well, as strong, but not as formidable as either the Blade Master or the Champion. It does have Siege Monster, though, so deals double damage to objects and structures, and they use a Warhammer instead to make 2 attacks. The Deep Diver are transformed by the magic of Sakola to enable them to explore deeper depths. So advantage on Dex stealth checks while submerged in water. They have lure, sort of like an anglerfish. It causes its lure to light up or darken at will. While the lure is lit, the Deep Diver sheds bright light in a 30-foot radius on itself and dim light for an additional 20 feet. Uses a glaive. But then we got the Light of Sakola. Deep Diver pulses magical light from its lure. Any creature within 30 feet of the Deep Diver that can see it must make a DC 11 Wisdom saving throw, be charmed until the end of its next turn. Charmed creature in this way is incapacitated as it stares at the light. So this, again, your anglerfish concept. Sahuagin Hatchling Swarm. Okay, so this is just I guess, swarms of baby Sahuagin hatchlings. Let's see, function like a swarm. Yeah, resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing, immune to charm, frightened, grappled, paralyzed, petrified, prone, restrained, and stunned. Still has blood frenzy. Seething, once in combat, it deals. As it enters combat, it deals 10 damage to itself at the end of its turn if it does not make an attack on that turn. Damage ignores resistances and can reduce the swarm to 0 hit points. Interesting. Can occupy other creatures' spaces. Can regain hit points or gain temporary hit points. Can only breathe underwater. But its bite attack does 46 piercing damage, or 2d6 if the swarm has half or fewer hit points. And the High Priestess, CR5. So this one's going to have the magic right here. Guidance, Mending. So we got the Cleric Magic. Yep, Guidance, Mending, Resistance, Thaumaturgy, Bless, Detect Magic, Guiding Bolt, Hold, Person, Spiritual Weapon, which looks like a trident. Stow, Curse, Fear, Mass Healing Word, Tongues, and Banishment. Has a Toothsome Staff that it can make 2 attacks with that do 2d8 damage. So that's pretty solid. Not too crazy. And then the Wave Shaper. See, it's interesting that the Wave... some of these I feel like the ranks don't make sense in the challenge ratings, but it is what it is. These hunched and twisted Sahuagins sacrifice their bodies to the mutating magic of Sakola. They had elemental magic forces to that. So let's see here. All the normal stuff. Innate spellcasting, just message and comprehend languages. But their big thing here is this whirlpool once per day. They targets a body of water at least 50 feet square and 25 feet deep, causing a whirlpool to form there. Forms a vortex that is 5 feet wide at the base and up to 50 feet wide at the top, 25 feet tall, and lasts for 1 minute or until they're incapacitated. Any creature or object in the water and within 25 feet is pulled 10 feet towards it. They can try to swim away with a DC 14 athletics check. When a creature enters the vortex for the first time or starts its turn there, it makes a DC 14 strength save. On a fail, it takes 2d8 bludgeoning damage and is caught into the vortex until it ends. On a success, they take half damage and aren't caught. Creature caught in the vortex can use its action to try to swim away from the vortex as described above at disadvantage. The first time each turn that an object enters the vortex, it takes 2d8 bludgeoning damage. The damage occurs each round and it remains in the vortex. Alright, Sandballet here is just another. We've got an NPC here. Humanoid with some magic. Looks like maybe a wizard or a sorcerer. Sea Lion, I think. Are sea lions new to this? They are. So this is your typical mammal, right? Your sea lion mammal here. Bite and claw, hold breath, challenge rating half, nothing crazy. The shell shark is new, which I thought is really cool. It's basically a hunter shark, I think. But the priestesses of Sakola have fused shells to the outside of it. So it's essentially a shark with plate armor. Badass. I love it. Nothing really too separate there, though. Skeletal Alchemist, I think, is also new for this one. Yeah. Also, I love the art, and I love that he's got like an ethereal arcane magic beard. I think that that's badass. Also, a great way to expand just based skeletons in your campaign. Because, I mean, he's still going to get destroyed by Destroy Undead if he fails, but he can throw acid, which is cool. And he has advantage on saving throws against spells. And he can throw acid. It doesn't do a ton of damage, right? It's a d8 plus 1 and a range of 30 to 120, but he can make 2 of those attacks. I don't know. I just think it's cool, and I like the image. I think is just great. And I thought, see, this image is from Tomb of Annihilation. I thought these were from that, but I guess not. So Skeletal Juggernaut is a challenge rating 5. This is a large creature, and it's sort of like a amalgamation of skeletons, I believe. Disassemble. If it's reduced to 0 hit points, 12 skeletons rise from its remains. If the Juggernaut does have all of its hit points at the start of a turn, it loses 10 hit points. 2 claw attacks, they have a reach of 10 feet, do 2d8 plus 3, or you can do Avalanche of Bones, which recharges on a 5/6. It collapses into a large heap before quickly reforming. Each creature within 10 feet of it must make a DC 14 dex save, take 48 bludgeoning damage. And if they fail, they're also knocked prone. Skeletal Swarm, it's a swarm of bones here. Creatures are deafened if they're in it because of the clattering bones. It has the swarm's typical knowledge here. Can't regain hit points. And then has all the typical immunities. Although this one, because it is a skeleton, is vulnerable to bludgeoning as opposed to resistant like most swarms are. And then 2d8 plus 2 slashing damage, or a d8 if it has half hit points. Here is Scum, and I love this. Several poor souls around the skies have succumbed to an aboleth magic through its disease-bearing touch. Transformed into creatures called Scum, they barely represent their past forms. This has a very Doctor Who vibe to me. And I can't picture what Doctor Who... Yeah, I want to say... My brain goes to the Ood, but it might be something else. But this just has a very Doctor Who vibe for me. Anyway, the change makes them dependent on water, which they must immerse themselves in. Basically, yeah, they're just altered by an abolithic magic, and they become this sort of gross monster tentacle creature. So obviously an aberration, right? Resistance to psychic damage. Permanently charmed by its master, can breathe water and air. Is immune to frightened and charmed unless they come from the aboleth. It takes d12 acid damage every 10 minutes it goes without exposure to water. It can make 3 attacks, 2 with its trident, which are basic, and 1 with its mind-breaking touch, which is also just a badass name. It does, if it hits 48 psychic damage, and the target has disadvantage on wisdom saving throws until the end of the Scum's next turn. This could be pretty nasty if you're pairing it up with an aboleth, right? They're giving them disadvantage. I believe this is, yeah, the Storm Giant Quintesson was from Volo's Guide to Monsters, so we'll skip that. Is the Swarm of Rot Grubs new? Nope, that's also Volo's Guide. Let's skip that one. Thousand Teeth Devourer is for this book, though, which is basically a slightly improved giant crocodile. If you know anything about me, some of my favorite creatures in Dungeons & Dragons are giant crabs and giant crocodiles, just because of the history I have with the game. It's an ancient crocodilian nightmare that has served as the apex predator in the swamps near Saltmarsh for as long as anyone can remember. It recently fought a number of lizard folks and lost one of its teeth. Angry and hungry, it sulks in its lair, lost in primal dreams of rending and tearing. I don't believe this is too much different than a giant crocodile base, but let's see. Well, it does have legendary resistance, which is definitely different. 2. Bite does 2d10 plus 4 damage. The tail does a d8 plus 4. And if it makes a strength saving throw, be knocked prone. And then it has legendary actions. Perception check, move up to half its speed. And for 2, it makes a bite attack. Yeah, I may actually be... I mean, it's awesome. And I love... Again, art is great, but... Nothing too crazy. And then lastly, the last new monster before we finish this video out is the Vampiric Jade statue, another guardian in the tunnels of the Isle of the Abbey. We saw the Minotaur statue earlier. Now we have this Vampire Jade statue. So again, it is a statue, a construct. So it's going to have those We aforementioned vulnerabilities to force, immunity to lightning and poison, several conditions: charmed, exhausted, frightened, paralyzed, petrified, poison. Challenge rating 8 too. I didn't say that at the start. Immune to effects that would alter its form. It has 3 legendary resistances. This is a statue. Legendary resistance. And it makes 3 attacks, 1 with its bite and 2 with its claws. The bite does 2d6 plus 3 piercing. And if it's a creature, it's cursed. The curse lasts for 10 minutes. While it's cursed, it has advantage on the creature is cursed. The statue has advantage on attack rolls against it. Its claws do 2d6 plus 3. And then its legendary actions, of which it has 3. 1 can use for bite to make a bite attack. 1 for Blood Reaper. All creatures cursed by the statue and within 20 feet of it take 5 necrotic damage. Or move. A creature moves up to half speed without provoking attacks of opportunity. So that's it, guys. Sorry that one took a little bit longer, and in the process of doing it, both the Essentials Kit and Acquisitions Incorporated, the book, have both come out since I started making this video. But I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what your favorite monster was contained in Ghosts of Saltmarsh. I'm a little torn, right? Because I told you I enjoy giant crocodiles and giant crabs as monsters. But I think the Scum are up there for me because they're just like terrifying, because that was a human or a humanoid at one point. But I don't know, man. Maybe it's the arcane armor, arcane magic beard. But the Skeletal Alchemist, I just really like the concept of a magic slinging skeleton. Like I said, it's nothing crazy to write home about. It's challenge rating 1/2. It's nothing like not gonna be slaying adventurers. But an army or 12 Skeletal Alchemists all slobbing acid at people, that could be pretty dangerous and interesting. And then I guess maybe the other one would be the Shell Shark, right? The shark with shell plate armor, also pretty cool. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I will see you for the next video.